Hi, my name is Thomas Okedi. I'm a student of organizational leadership with Southeastern University. This vlog is about leadership in context. I had the opportunity, and the purpose is to, surface leadership competencies that we each require to be successful in different contexts. I had the opportunity of interviewing three humanitarian leaders. One of them is in Afghanistan, another one in Uganda, and the other in Ethiopia. So these are three different contexts, three different people, three different organizations, but with the same purpose of, surfacing competencies which are required for success in different contexts. So one of the interviewees I interacted with was called Jane Lucy. She works with one of the UN organizations in Ethiopia. She's a humanitarian expert and has had the opportunity of working in Yemen, in the Horn of Africa and Eastern Africa. Vast experiences of more than 10 years in her field. The second interviewer, the second leader that I interacted with was called Sam Kipps. Sam Kipps is currently working in Afghanistan as an education specialist. Again, he also has a lot of experience working in East Africa, working in the Horn of Africa, and is really, someone very, very excellent at the work that he does. And the third person that I interviewed is a director of a non-government organization in Uganda. He's been in that position for more than 10 years. He basically, took up the organization when it was a very, very small organization and has been able to expand and grow it. And so these are the three leaders that I'm going to be focusing on as I go through this vlog. What were some of the leadership competencies they displayed in their context? What challenges did they experience and what can we learn in terms of leadership in context from their own experiences as leaders? So I will start by looking at Jane Lucy. How did she succeed in the context where she was working? Remember, I told you she's an expert with one of the UN agencies in Ethiopia. And during my interview with Jane Lucy, she basically told me four things. One, that one of the things that has helped her to be successful has been political savviness. So learn who is who. Learn who controls what. Learn and identify very fast as you can, because she told me the UN is about politics. And so if you do not understand who the power brokers are, you are most likely going to end up in the wrong hands. So for her, it was about political savviness, the ability to quickly understand the politics of the organization and position herself for success. The second issue she talked about was personal privacy. And she said that in the UN, it is less of collaboration and more of competition. And people want to find out, what do you possess? What do you have? So that they can find all linkages of pulling you down or bringing you down. So one of the things she told me is that she has been able to succeed partly because she keeps her life private. She does not disclose the nature of the investment she has. She does not disclose her personal life, and she is just there to engage as a professional to provide a service to the humanitarian organization. And then she also talked about technical expertise and confidence. She told me, Thomas, for you to be able to succeed in the kind of work that I do, you must be a technical expert. Let people know that you are the person who can do the work that you have signed up to do. And you must have the confidence in the kind of work that they do, because people will consult you, people will come to you. So it is important that you demonstrate technical competence and expertise. And lastly, it was also revealing from Jane Lucy's interview that in the organization she works for, prioritize written communication. Because if you communicate to people verbally, people misinterpret and misrepresent the information that you will have provided. So for her, she learned that to be successful in the kind of context she was working in, written communication was supreme. So that if anyone at any one point in time tried to twist what she said, at least she had a reference in terms of an email. So those were the four factors that were very crucial in Jane Lucy's success as a leader in the context she was working in. My second interviewee was Sam Kipps. I told you he works in Afghanistan as an education specialist with one of the humanitarian organizations. And Sam Kipps told me 4 things that have helped him to be successful. The first one is that do it now. The organization that he works for is an organization that prioritizes urgency. There is no time to wait. You must be able to hit the ground running and demonstrate results. And then he also told me, you have to think on your feet. There is no time for you to pause and, begin saying that, I need 1 week, I need 2 weeks for me to think about what I'm going to do. Do the work as you think alone. Your strategies have to be agile. Your actions have to be innovative, but never stop. Just keep moving. And then he also told me, Thomas, I found this very funny. Be present and useful. And he told me, let your presence count. The organization he works for is a highly, highly political organization. And people are looking for opportunities of bringing in their friends. People are looking for opportunities of bringing in their acquaintances. So it is important that you are present and you are useful. Make your presence count. And lastly, he told me that for him, he had to build a team. He found a team of about 5 or so people that he was working with, and he invested his energies in building up their capacity, and the multiplier effect was great. So that was Sam Kipps' success as a leader. Park Saka, again, an excellent humanitarian leader in Uganda, inherited a very small organization which he has been able to grow into one of the renowned national organizations operating in northern Uganda. And for him, there were again 4 things that were critical for his success in the context he was working in. The first one was adaptive thinking. Park Saka told me that when he started working as a director of the organization he was working with, he realized very fast that a majority of the organizations were depending on donor grants for funding. And so he said, what happens if the donor grants are going to dwindle, given the fact that there are so many needs emerging around the world? So he decided to transform his organization into a social enterprise that would do business for community good. And by having that kind of adaptive thinking, his organization, apart from getting grants from donors, was also able to generate its own income to invest into the kind of community development work that they were doing. And I found that to be excellent. The second thing Park Saka told me was that you have to develop a niche. The world we are operating in is a very, very competitive world. So what is your competitive advantage as an organization? For him, he positioned his organization as an organization with an excellent track record in rural development. So every donor, every partner that was looking for an organization with an excellent track record in rural development would go to his organization. So develop a niche or develop a competitive advantage so that indeed you become the go-to person or you become the go-to organization when people are looking for partnerships. He also built up a team, and for him, most importantly, it was also about being transparent. I told you he started off as a very small organization, had a core team of people, believed in those people, built up their capacity, and ensured that, he was as transparent as possible in sharing the information with these people. And some of the people that he has worked with, he found that organization have been that organization for 15 years now. They have become a core component of this organization, and their historical memory is something that Park has been able to leverage on to grow the organization. So how did the 3 leaders, how did Jane, how did Sam, how did Park develop the skills to succeed in their context? In unanimity, they talked about 3 things. 1, they spoke to trusted people they found in the context. So again, speak to the people. So open your eyes, open your ears, and just learn. Learn from the people you find in the context. I found that to be revealing because it's quite important. And then they learned by doing. They did not have to wait to be given all the instructions or to be given all the inductions they needed to do. They basically swung into action and learned along the way. Made a few mistakes here and there, but they were able to learn and they kept working. And then all the three interviewees I had also said that it was important to learn the internal dynamics of the organization. So learn the politics, learn the structure, learn the processes, because that is very, very critical. So three things in terms of how they developed skills. They spoke to the people they found in place. They just learned by doing, and they also zoomed deeper into the organizational structure so that they would try to understand what the organizations were all about. What challenges did they face? Organizational impatience. Organizations were saying, we want you to start doing your work. You are an expert. We don't have time. Do it now. Another challenge they faced is that there was also a very poor handover from some of their predecessors. So they had to start from, some of them were saying, from negative or from scratch. So poor handover from the predecessors also made their life very difficult. And in some of the contexts, like for example, for Sam Kipps, he told me there was no historical memory. He found some of the colleagues in the context, but they were extremely new. They had also been in the organization for only 3 months. So in terms of reflecting back and digging into 1 or 2 or 3 years of what has been happening in an organization, they didn't have that. The timing of their deployment was not right, and that is basically for Amos Kipps. As you may all know, Afghanistan has had a bit of political chaos over the last 3 months, and so that is the time when Amos was brought into the country. And so there was a lot happening externally, and so his ability to be able to settle into the context was quite challenging. And then one of the things that was revealing that they talked about was that not all the information was provided to them when they joined the organizations. So they had to learn by doing, they had to learn by talking to people, they had to learn by observing, and basically, find a way of getting themselves around. What are the recommendations from literature in terms of how we can be effective in different contexts? One, we need to diagnose the organizations that we are working with. And Bowman and Deal provided the 4 frames analysis, that we must be able to look at organizations in terms of their politics, in terms of the structure, in terms of the human resource, and in terms of the symbolic frames. This is very critical. Understand the organization that you work for. And number 2, know your people. So Hofstede provided cultural dimensions in terms of the culture, so the values, how values in a workplace are influenced by the culture of the place we work in. And one of the things that he said is that it is important that we must recognize that national culture cannot be changed, and we should be able to understand and respect it. That is very critical. So in all the discussions, all the interviews I had with my 3 interviewees, that is something they brought up, either in terms of the culture of the organization, so even their ability to understand the context and immerse into the context, because that contributed a lot to their success. So know your people, understand the culture, and know that it is your responsibility as a leader to respect the culture you find in place and be part of it. And then use effective communication. This came out very clearly from Jen, that write it down, jot it down. Don't just depend on verbal communication, because it can easily be changed. And Kevin Cashman, in 2008, advised leaders to develop both the power of voice and the power of presence. So diagnose the organization, know your people, know the people that you're working with, and most importantly, use the power of communication. As I conclude, I want to say that organizations and contexts are extremely different. Don't assume that what has worked in another organization in another context will work in another organization and context. Learn the dynamics of the organization and the context. And this is your first assignment as a leader. So don't assume that because you have been given a position, you basically zoom into the job description and think that is why you will derive your success. That is important. But your first assignment as a leader is to understand the context, is to understand your organization, because that contributes to a greater percentage of your success. And lastly, the experiences of Jane, Sam, and Park show us that a mastery of the context facilitates our leadership success. So master your content, master your context, because that makes a very big contribution to your success as a leader. Thank you very much.